Happy Thursday, everybody. Welcome into PTN Extra. You know the deal by now. That's Mike Irwin. I'm Evan Kamiko. We've got a lot to talk about, Mike. It feels like it hasn't been that eventful of a week, but it really is. If you look at the grand scheme of things, Arkansas goes on the road, takes down Oklahoma a couple days ago. Next up for the Razorbacks and John Calipari's team, his former team, Kentucky. We'll get there in just a second. We're also going to talk a little bit about baseball, softball stuff around the corner, and also this new Board of Trustees meeting that happened a couple of days ago where the Razorbacks will now have to add another $15 million to the budget. We'll get all of that later on in the show. Let's start with basketball. Mike, your biggest takeaway from the 83-79 win the other night in Norman.
Well, on the surface, it looked a little bit like the LSU game in that you have a last place team that you're playing, but one of them is at home. The Oklahoma game is on the road. So I was more impressed with how they played. They didn't get as far behind either. They were down 4 at the half, outscored Oklahoma by 8, I think, in the second half. And from about the 16-minute mark, for the most part, they were either up or the score was tied, so they didn't fall behind. I think there's a value to getting into the last minute, minute and a half, 2 minutes, and it can go either way and you win because that sort of shows a mentality. We're going to figure out a way to win. You don't want to lose games like that for sure. But fans are concerned, some of them, because you're talking last place. Why are you having trouble the second straight game you play a last place team? And I think I tried to make the point on Ask Mike on Monday that LSU had their point guard back that had been missing all of these SEC games, and he clearly made a big difference. Let's see what they do. Well, we saw what they did. They got bounced at home against Mississippi State, so that kind of blows my argument up. It's hard to – the only thing I can come up with is this league is balanced enough that every game kind of takes on a life of its own, and it's very hard to predict what's going to happen right now. And I would say the same thing when we talk about Kentucky coming up. But I did like the way they played against the Sooners. I like the fact that, I like the fact that Darius Acuff, Malik Thomas, and Malik Ewan all stepped up along with Carter Knox. When those 4 guys are all playing well, they got a good shot at winning. But what did we see from Acuff at the end? I mean, he just figures out a way to win games.
There was a poise late there when he misses that free throw, and you're thinking, oh, God, what's going to happen? He comes back with the ball and goes right downhill. It's not like he tried to fade away or anything. It's not like he tried to chuck up a 3. We saw DJ Wagner throw up a 3 a couple of possessions before that you're thinking, hey, man, you've been on the bench all game. What is that shot? Like, what are you doing? He gets immediately pulled. Malik Thomas goes back in. But the poise from the freshman, there's a reason he's won 6 SEC Freshman of the Week awards, and to see it come up again, no turnovers, 9 assists, almost a double-double, 21 points like you mentioned. It's really just fun to watch and something that I think Arkansas fans should not take for granted right now.
Yeah, and once again, we had this weird stat, this thing that is just so out of character for this team. In this game, it was you made 2 threes. 2 3-pointers in the whole game, and it's not like they just shot 5 or 6. They were shooting them left and right in the first half. And I'm thinking Cal's got to call timeout and say, don't shoot 3s anymore. We're making 2s, shoot 2s. But again, when you've got a guy like Darius Acuff on your team, you can have these strange things happen and you still win because he figures out a way at the end to win a game.
2 for 17 from beyond the arc. They had 56 points in the paint in this game. I mean, you brought up Malik Ewan a little bit ago. Him and Pringle went a combined 9 for 9 from the floor. Like,
that's
they were
impressive.
Really good. And it's things that I think the Arkansas fan base has wanted to see a little bit more of is consistency from the 2 big guys. You got that, but what did it cost you? It cost you a game from Trevin Brazile where he made some good plays and had obviously the very, very big moment at the end of the game with the block. But maybe the scoring output wasn't there because they didn't need him to be there that night when it came to scoring output.
Yeah, so again, now the question is, why does Arkansas always get off to a slow start? Why do they struggle against these teams that are – and so now you're moving up a little bit because Kentucky is middle of the pack. Do you play better against them? You're also playing a team that also gets off to slow starts. So that's the big question. Who's going to get off to the slowest start in this Arkansas-Kentucky game?
There could potentially be like 8 points scored in the first, 6 minutes of this game. It'll be really fascinating to watch, to your point, which team gets off scoring. You'd like to think because it is a home game, Arkansas 13-0 when they play inside Bud Walton. Don't quote me on that. I believe it is 13-0.
Right.
I know they're undefeated for a fact. I don't know if it's 13 or 14.
13-0.
But the flip side is they're not great on the road. Going into that Oklahoma game, 1-3 in true road games. They lost their last 2 by a combined 36 points. The trends were favoring Oklahoma when it comes to this Razorback team on the road, but it being home. And then you add on top of that the Cal level. I know he said after the game, look, it's just the next game. We need to keep pace with the top of the SEC right now. The Florida, who looks fantastic right now, the team that we thought Florida was going to be, and some of those other teams, Texas A&M, the surprise team. But let's level, Mike. It's important to win this game for Cal.
Well, he's not going to come out and say how much, but I promise you this game is not just an ordinary game to him. It's just not. Now, here's the problem. Because every time Arkansas plays a game like this, there's some sort of strange, weird motivation for the other team. In this particular case, the game at Vanderbilt the other night, in which Kentucky got completely blown out, I don't know who the camera person was, whether it was somebody locally there in Nashville. I don't think it would have been somebody with Kentucky, but there was a video guy in the tunnel when Kentucky came out, but before they came out onto the floor. And we've seen these videos. They get together and then they talk, and then right at the middle, all their hands go together. And they always say something like BBN or Big Blue Nation or whatever, go. In this case, they said, touch the money. Touch the money? This has set Kentucky fans off because Mark Pope spent more money on this team than any other team of these, supposedly $20 million to put this group together. And now they're saying, yeah, you gave them all this money and they're no good because that's all they care about is the money. So now he's spent these last several days showing that to them. Hey, everybody thinks this is what they think of you guys.
Yeah.
You don't care. So I just got to believe they're going to come in here. They're going to be focused. You're going to see a different kind of team. Now, they've been on a little bit of a roll anyway. They were due because I watched, I think, what, they have a 4-game winning streak? 5?
Yeah, 4.
Something? 4. I'd watched all of those games. And I'm not saying they didn't play well, but they got those games handed to them. LSU played like crap against them. Other teams played terrible against them. So this was a Vanderbilt team that had problems of its own, and they needed to win, and they came out and just jumped all over them. Mm-hmm. So you don't have that for Kentucky. Now you see what happens when they play a team that's motivated, playing well. Well, what I'm saying is Arkansas has to do that. If you want to avoid the upset here, I'm telling you, Kentucky can be beaten and beaten badly if you go out and play well. But if you mess around with them and do what Arkansas has done in some of these games, like the LSU game, the first half against Oklahoma, if you play that way and play loose defense, they're going to beat you.
Yeah, it's a Kentucky team, like you've mentioned. They are, vulnerable to two big losses. If you look on paper, everything says Arkansas should win this game. Every stat is in favor of the Razorbacks. Common history is in favor of the Razorbacks. But what was interesting is after the game, we asked Malik Thomas, hey, what do you think of this game? Like, how big is the momentum? He said momentum from a win like the one at Oklahoma is big no matter what. But it feels like recently Arkansas is playing all these teams that are extra motivated, like you've kind of mentioned. What I'm curious about is this it doesn't feel like last year flipped, but a little bit, where Kentucky needs a statement win. They beat Tennessee, who was a ranked opponent when they beat them, but they don't have that big win to get them going, and that can snowball the, hey, we're just here to touch money, into the, no, we're actually good because we're worth this amount of money, right? Where last year it was kind of the same thing, where Arkansas, we knew they were good, we knew the pieces were there, but they needed something to get that snowball rolling, so where they can now go on and make that Sweet 16 run and get to the NCAA tournament and so on and so forth. It feels like this could be it for Kentucky.
Yeah, and you can see Mark Pope. You got to believe one of his motivations is going to be, hey, guys, look what they did to us last year. Some of you were here and remember that. The rest of you were telling me this was embarrassing. Mm-hmm. So let's return the favor. Come on.
Yeah.
Let's go down there and get them and do to them what they did to us. It'll get us, our fans, behind us again, and it will. I mean, they'll all be forgiven. I guarantee you with Mark Pope if they win this game.
So for Arkansas in this game on Saturday, what's going to be the most important thing to get the win?
I think they have to start off fast because Kentucky has historically, this season has been a second-half team, If that's an even-Steven ball game at halftime, you may be in trouble.
Yeah.
So I think you need to start off, better than you have been. And the main thing is somehow, and I'm not there, I don't know what goes on in the locker room, I don't know what goes on with these players, but somehow they have to understand that Kentucky getting beat by Vanderbilt badly by 15 points the other night does not necessarily mean this is going to be an easy game.
Yeah.
Because they won't play. It could be Cal, I don't know what it is, but teams play Arkansas better than they play other teams. They just do.
Yeah, and I think this is going to be a game that's going to come down to, unless Arkansas starts out really quick and gets off to an early lead, because if they do, Bud Walton's going to be rocking, and there's no way Kentucky can hang in this environment in this game. But I think personally it's going to come down to the last 2 or 3 possessions. Look, both of these teams know how to win in different ways late in the game. You look at Kentucky's last 5. Ole Miss, okay, they beat them by 9. Texas, they won by 5. They beat Tennessee in Knoxville by 2 points, and then the game in LSU where they chucked it up and, miracle ending for Mark Pope's squad to avoid that 1-3 start. So they know how to win close games as well, and they've been blown out. Arkansas, they've been blown out on the road, but they haven't been blown out at home just yet, obviously, because they're 13-0. So I think it's going to come down to the end of the game, and if Darius Acuff Jr. has the ball in his hands, I think you're in good shape if you're Arkansas.
You're going to have to count on him again. You're going to have to count on Malik Thomas. I think Ewan has to play well. Billy Richmond and or Carter Knox, one of those two is going to have a really good game. I see it being a close game. I do. I just think that's the way this is going to go. And I think Kentucky's going to come in highly motivated. I think they're going to play probably harder than they have all year. So if you beat them, you better bring your lunch because it's going to take all day to do this thing.
Absolutely. It's going to be a great game, a great atmosphere this weekend in Bud Walton Arena. All right, don't go anywhere. PTN Extra returns after this quick break. Mike Irwin and I will be back on the other side. All right, back here on PTN Extra. That's Mike Irwin. I'm Evan Kamiko. Mike, big news out of the Hill earlier today. This memorandum that has come up for the University of Arkansas, they need to add $15 million right now. And again, correct me if any of my wording is off. You know this much better than I do, but it's going to be significant in the future because you've got to find that money somewhere. What do you make on everything? Matt Jones and Christina Long were reporting earlier today that there was a lively debate during this Board of Trustees meeting on the topic.
Very strange meeting in that Chancellor Robinson claimed that he didn't know anything about it until he got there. There were a couple of board members that apparently voted against the memorandum, sort of indicated, well, if we know more about it, we might vote on it whether we approve it or not. And I guess they're coming back in several days to look at that. But they didn't feel like they knew enough about it, were blindsided by a little bit. So how did this even happen? How did this come about? Well, some people are saying, look, this was discussed. You're just forgetting that we discussed in previous board meetings what we're going to need in order for Ryan Silverfield to come up with the extra money to get what he needed and what he was promised. So they seem to have known that. And it's $15 million beyond what Sam Pittman had. And so now we see they're committed to spend that. They haven't spent it yet. I mean, this is just starting. So we know that's what Silverfield and his staff believed they had to work with, $15 extra million on top of whatever they had before. Could be as much as $25 million for the total portal and for the freshman class. So we see now why they were able to bring so many in, why they were able to pay a certain amount of money and whatever. But apparently part of this was that last year the SEC gave a one-time $5 million amount of money back to the school because of something that they had left over, and it was a gift to each of these schools. Well, now he's not going to have it this year, and you need the money even more. So right off the bat, the memorandum said that from here forward until we change our mind on this, the 6% money that the athletic department had been giving to the university, we're not going to make you do that anymore. Now, that's a really weird thing anyway, because when I got here in '75, that's one of the things that I was told right off the bat. Frank Broyles doesn't take any tax dollars. They don't take money from the university to run their athletic department. They're self-supporting, and they even give money back. It's his way of having a good relationship with the faculty. We're going to give you some of what we make. And they've done that ever since then. Well, now, seems logical to me, with NIL and all this stuff and extra money you have to come up, yeah, that's where you start. Mm-hmm. So the board did I can't see that anybody would argue with this. We're not asking you to give this money back anymore. They don't do that anywhere else.
Right.
Okay, so then the people that were pushing this, and I wasn't at this meeting, so I'm not sure who it was, they turned to Chancellor Robinson and said, the second part of this is, we're giving you several days to come up with a plan to raise $6 million more for the athletic department. And so he's expressed concern that he doesn't know how he's going to do this. Come on. It's obvious what you do. You put in a student activity fee. This is done at most schools. It's done at South Carolina to the tune of $11 million. So you can raise $6 million by doing this. I think it's been calculated that if you just do the student activity fee among Razorback, the enrollment of 33,000, you need $175 for each student added to their tuition, which would raise this money. So to me, that's where it's coming from. I can't imagine any other way they're going to come up with the $6 million. So now you're up to around $10 million, but you're $5 million short of what you need to be able to pay all these athletes that you've just brought in. So they turned to Hunter Yurachek and they said, the challenge you have is to figure out a way, and you come back here in 10 days or whenever it is, and you show us how you're going to raise another $5 million. And so that's what he's got to do. Well, to me, he's got two options. If he can come up with this naming rights thing that everybody complains about, the naming rights for Reynolds Razorback Stadium is gone. I don't know if they have to call it that anymore or not. Maybe it's just Razorback Stadium. But if you can find a company, a corporation, that would pay you $5 million a year for, say, 15 years to have, and have you ever noticed that even though the Reynolds, the Don W. Reynolds Foundation had the naming rights, it's nowhere on the stadium? Where do you see that?
I think the only place you see it is like out in front when you're driving down and it says Donald W. Reynolds on the scoreboard, but it's not like anywhere inside the actual stadium.
Or on the building or anything like that. Well, I've got to believe that if somebody's going to give you $5 million a year, you have to put their name all over the outside somehow. What I was told at the time when Frank did this was, well, they don't expect a signage, but they want everybody to call it Don W. Reynolds Razorback Stadium, no longer Razorback Stadiums. And the SID at the time, Rick Schaefer, got on me one day. He said, you're still calling it Razorback Stadium. I said, Rick, I don't work for you guys. I'll call it whatever I want. And he said, well, that's disrespectful for what we're trying to do because they're giving us money, and you ought to be respectful of the fact that they're helping us. And so I thought about it, and I said, okay, I'll start calling it Don W. Reynolds. But that's the only way it was done. This new way of, if it ever gets done, I got to believe there'll be signs all over the place. But he hasn't been able to do that. So where else would the money come from? Aha! There's another controversy over the last 3 days. A lot of these season ticket holders are starting to notice they're getting a little thing in the mail that says you're going to have to up your donation by this percentage, 20%, 50%, whatever. Yeah. There were 3 guys in a skybox. Said they'd been renting the skybox and sharing the cost, and the fee 3 years ago was $5,000 before you buy the tickets. Then it went to $10,000 last year, and now it's going to go to $20,000. I don't think we can afford this. All over the internet, I'm reading people saying, I've had tickets for 30 years, I'm done. And why are they reacting this way? Because it's bad timing. If this is Hunter Yurachek's idea of how you raise money, you've got a 2-win team, and you're going to come back and say, by the way, you got to pay out the wazoo for our team this year. Wait till they win a little bit to do that. Yeah. And so if that's his plan, and he comes back and proposes that, what's the board, how are they going to react to that? I don't know. But let's say that they go ahead and say, okay, that's what you have to do. What if he didn't? What if the money falls? What if, for instance, there's less money on season ticket sales this year because of the 2-win season, not more money? Now how do you pay these athletes that you promised all this money? Where's that going to come from? There's no other place for it to come from. Then it goes back to the university, and the Board of Trustees is going to have to figure out how does the university make up this difference. It sounds really iffy to me.
And I think the shocking thing is if we look at this in kind of that cycle, right? Like, you know, you hire Silverfield, then you charge over an extra. Okay, now you have to make this extra money up. Then what happens if the team doesn't perform?
Exactly.
Everyone's going to want to pull. Like, it is not fair, in my opinion, to go and ask Razorback fans to donate more money and spend more money on season tickets right now for a team that won 2 games this past season. And we don't know how they're going to be next season. I'll look in the camera and say this. You have arguably, if you're Arkansas, hired, out of all the candidates, what could have been maybe the worst candidate that you could have hired for this job cycle. I think that's a very realistic and true thing to say. I'm not saying it's not going to work. I'm not going to sit here and say Silverfield's going to be a bust. But you have to have hope somewhere. And you look at it. You look at Indiana, and I'll use them. Obviously, it worked. People were questioning Curt Cignetti right away. Nobody wanted to donate right away. And I think with Silverfield, you're at that same boat where, okay, there's a sliver of hope, but I'm not going to give money if I'm a Razorback fan right away because I don't know what the product's going to be. There's a realistic scenario, Mike, where they could go 1-12 next year.
Yeah.
I think it's not likely going to happen, but you look at all the Power 4 games they have to play. You like Arkansas in any one of them? Right now, I don't think I do.
Well, again, I'm talking to a long-time booster, season ticket holder, or whatever about this. And what he said to me was, hey, if I'm Hunter Yurachek, that's not my option. Get this money from jacking up ticket prices. I'm going to go get the naming rights thing done some way, somehow, because that gives you that extra $5 million without taking it from the fans.
Right.
One person, one corporation does it. And he said, if he uses any other method than that, at least if it's a force thing, because the popular belief among a lot of people is that Hunter Yurachek's way of getting money is to put you, a fan, in a position where you don't have a choice. Mm-hmm. It's not, hey, can you help us out here? It's not that. It's, hey, by the way, I'm raising the ticket prices and you don't have an option. If you want to stay and watch these games, you're going to have to pay this. So you're held hostage.
Yeah.
You're going to pay for whatever he needs because he's not going to give you a choice. But see, at some point, you can do that with baseball and basketball because they're winning. Is this going to work with football when they're not winning?
Yeah.
Makes no sense to me.
And we're even forgetting the fact that you have a fan base that is very divided on Hunter Yurachek as it is and as it stands. And obviously, the Ryan Silverfield hire, again, in principle, doesn't look great to a lot of fans, but you've got to make it work somehow. And there are people that are going to start taking sides. And if they don't, because let me ask you, when was the last time that Arkansas had they were getting paid for the naming rights to the stadium? Do you know that off the top of your head?
Well, I think it's been 2 years since the Reynolds Razorback thing ran out. I think it's been 2 years. But here's the thing. If he comes back and reports back to him and that's his answer, yes, I've gotten the naming rights, so that's going to give us $5 million.
Right. Easy.
Then you go, wow, that's what we wanted.
Then we're debating this for nothing.
Yeah, we gave you $10 million. We gave you, because we're making you not give us that money back every year, and we gave you 6 more, and then you raise 5 on your own. We're all happy. It's all good if it works out that way. But if he has to come back and say, well, we've increased ticket prices and we're going to get a lot of money from that, and that's when, if I'm a board member, I'm going, really?
Yeah.
You really think that all these people are going to just jump up and play twice as much for their tickets for a team that won 2 games last year?
Crazy.
I don't know about that.
Interesting times ahead when it comes to that. All right, we got one final break here on PTN Extra. We'll be right back. All right, back here wrapping up shop on PTN Extra this week. Evan Kamiko alongside Mike Irwin. Mike, there's one thing that we haven't really talked a lot about. It's if we look outside of our studio windows, there's a lot of snow on the ground. You got baseball and softball starting up in the next week. How do you think the weather has kind of been impacting these teams as they get ready? Softball opens next Friday, baseball in a couple weeks in Arlington.
Well, you always hope that you have warm weather January into early February so that you'll be more prepared when you go play that, especially the baseball team that goes down to Arlington, because they're down there because that's indoors. The weather's not going to affect them. But how prepared are they compared to some of the other teams that they play who maybe they're not, but this cold is everywhere. So I got to believe that most teams are having a problem. We know for a fact that they were able to get in a couple of workouts before the snow hit outdoors. We know they went indoors during the snow period. But like yesterday and today, the temperature's in the 40s. I got to believe they got that field cleared off and they've been outside again. That's what you need. You got the indoor facility. You can kind of do infield stuff, but your outfielders aren't getting any work. It's just not an ideal arrangement. You do it if you can. Now, softball, have you seen their indoor? I mean, it's really small. It's infield too. So they don't want to be put in that situation either. So hopefully they can get the snow off the field, because they do have the ability to do that, and that it's going to be a little bit cold for a couple of days, but it warms up some next week, and then hopefully the week after that, and then they'll all be prepared.
Exactly. Suddenly, it's like we blinked, and here's baseball, here's softball. Gymnastics is on the road this weekend. In Florida, you've got track and field. They're hosting an event here on the Hill this weekend as well. So a lot of things to talk about, a lot of fun stuff going on. But that is going to do it for our show this week. As always, thank you so much for tuning in to PTN Extra. That's Mike Irwin. I'm Evan Kamiko. We'll see you back here next week on The Extra.